before. Like,
all right. Well, welcome everybody. I am Jethro Jones. Excited to have you guys here. And on the presenting stage with me is Casey Yorty right here and Peter Lasowski. Casey is a teacher in my school, and Peter Lasowski is a developer who has a lot of stuff he said to tell you that I totally forgot. So I'm going to give these guys just a minute right now to introduce themselves. And so Casey, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Peter.
Hi, I'm Casey Yorty. I'm an English teacher at the 8th grade and 7th grade level in Tanana Middle School here in Fairbanks, Alaska. It's nice to meet you.
And hi guys, I'm Peter Lasowski, and I run a business incubator in Southern California. We do a lot of cutting edge technologies. I've got some really cool stuff to share with you about chatbots and artificial intelligence today.
All right, well, I'm excited to talk about this because I like doing things that are different and unique, and I like being on the cutting edge, and sometimes that's a scary place to be, and this is an area where I think we're on the cutting edge, but I think is actually pretty exciting. So we're going to talk a little bit about what chatbots are first and foremost. Chatbots are little things that you interact with. Have you ever been on a website and down in the bottom right, it said, "Hi, I'm here to help you." And there's a picture of a nice smiling person. And you know, if you start typing in there, then they'll give responses. That is a chatbot, because that's how companies maintain giving that kind of support, but that's not really somebody behind the keyboard looking at that. No, it's not. Sorry. I know.
so disappointed. That's not the Alaska Airlines?
Yeah.
Yeah. So ask Jen with Alaska Airlines. That is not a real person. That is a bot. So, so what I'm thinking, and if you want to go to a website to see all of what we're doing, it's jethrojones.com/ASTE18. That has links to the slides here, and you'll be able to check it out and see. There will be a part where I'm going to ask you to jump in and do some editing of the document, the Google slide. So please do go there, jethrojones.com/ASTE18, and you can see all the resources for this. And so with chatbots, being able to have something that allows us to, for what our purposes here, like when you hear Peter talk, he's going to talk aspirationally about the future. And I keep trying to like pull him back and make sure that we're just getting a minimum viable product out. So what we're going to do is we are working with him to create a chatbot for us to teach kids about the Raven mythos in 3 Alaska Native cultures. Athabascan, Yupik, and Alutiiq. He just said 5. Yeah, well, he'll talk about that more when he gets there. But this is basically a way for us to teach what the Raven mythos means to students and adults, and make sure that we have the background knowledge that we need. That's the goal to get started, and then to go forward and do some really cool things beyond that. Do you have a question, Jeff? No? Okay. All right. No judgment. All right. Okay. So the dream for chatbots is guided conversations with students to ensure everyone has a similar knowledge of background, similar level of background knowledge. And we want it to become more than that eventually, but for our first iteration, that's what we're looking for. Second, we don't believe that a chatbot can take over the role of an effective teacher, and we're not going to have chatbots that are like understanding everything that kids need to know and all that. We're going to have a basic level, and that's just want to make sure that's where we're starting. And then we do believe that chatbots can do a better job at communicating facts and following a guided conversation so that all students get a consistent message. And so that's really what the focus is here, and just to set your expectations correctly. All right, so what I wanted to have us do first is, if you want to try this out, go to this link, bit.ly/bottravel, and this will take you to a Facebook Messenger page about travel in Zambia that was created by Peter's company. and it'll give them your public Facebook information for their Facebook page. And so what I'd like you to do first is go and just spend a couple minutes exploring this. And as you're exploring it, I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll come back together in just a moment. All right, so what we're going to look at now is the list that you guys made here, and hopefully everything's on there because I just re-projected it. That's all right. We'll just add that last one in. So as you can see, there are some things that are beneficial, and there are some things that are really challenging. And I think this is an important thing to recognize as we move to adopt any technology, that with the limitations in the design of the technology and the limitations in humans and different things, like we just need to be aware of what things will work and what things won't, and be able to pay attention and deal with those as they come up. So a couple of things. Number one, that Facebook is blocked. Facebook Messenger is not the only place that bots exist. And so depending on the platform you're using, you can use it on a website that could not collect any personally identifiable information, or it could be it could associate it with a Google account, or any number of other things. Yeah, sir.
Maybe like the school forms. Kids can go to the school's website and let you hear that.
Yep. That would be a good place to be able to host it, so that whoever's going to it is your student and all that, etc. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so like on my Google sites, I got class on web page on Google sites, so some are gonna embed there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So as we're doing this, like, yes, Facebook is blocked. That's an issue. We need to either deal with that or overcome it. That doesn't mean that we stop the conversation. And in fact, in my district, we had that exact conversation, that somebody said, well, because this is using Facebook Messenger, then it's not going to work. And then we were able to figure out a solution to that could allow this to still work. And so you've got to be able to have the conversation and have it with the right people, and be able to make good decisions that will lead to good things happening for kids. So somebody said something about the rabbit trails. Do you want to talk? Was that you, Michelle? Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
I think Christine mentioned it first, was you're setting up some parameters. You're setting up basically a launching point. So it can't be immediately, I'm going to go figure out the tongue of a hippo. It's a nice broad view. I like that as the launching point.
Yeah.
It was nice how you didn't have to sort out all this stuff. Direct.
Yep.
Good start.
Yeah. So when we're trying to build background knowledge for kids, which is, what our vision was at the beginning of this that I told you, we want everybody to have a basic level of understanding. We don't want rabbit trails. We want them to do rabbit trails with a teacher to say, oh, you're interested in that? Here's some resources I can point you to. When it's just building background knowledge, we want it to be a level playing field, very easy for everybody to have access to, and for them to be able to learn from that. So that's good.
It's a good way to talk about reliable sources too, and kind of give them an example of like, here's where you can find good information. I know I teach middle school, and that's always a huge issue. If you're doing a research paper, why are you on Google Images?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Are you looking at memes?
And in the example, that was one area where it took you to a website that you could say, this is the website that we're saying is a good source for this kind of information, rather than, just a Google search.
Until they can get those skills themselves.
Exactly. Yep.
Training wheels.
Yep. Okay. Anything else that you guys want to talk about here before we move on to the next piece?
You said there's other examples you've used the bot. Have you done it with anything else besides Messenger? Like what other places, if you were using one of these, would you recommend?
Yeah.
I see a lot of issues with the Facebook thing. Kids not having an account, or kids don't have their own device, they can't get onto on Facebook. It sets up a lot of issues, I feel like.
Yep. So I'll have Peter talk about that, because he's more knowledgeable about the different sources. I'll tell you, for me, I've used it to get help on different websites, as we talked about in the beginning. Ask Jen, which is through Alaska Airlines. That is a bot also. And then there are a lot of customer service portals that in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little, hey, can I help you kind of a thing. And those are all bots that give generic answers and then connect you to someone if that's what you need. So that kind of an approach that does exist. And Peter, make sure you answer that question as well. If you heard it right. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
What's the framework you use? I look on lynda.com. They do have training for it. Like I said, I've never heard this before. And I see Microsoft bot framework and then something else called Garmin or something. Am I on the right track here?
Yep. So actually right now there's another session with Microsoft that is using Microsoft Bot to create something else. I'm sorry, what?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm with you.
So what framework are you using?
So this one is using the Facebook Messenger bot, and then there are other kinds of bots as well. So if you want to get started today, you could use ManyChat, which allows you to create your own, and then there's a bunch of other ones that do the same kind of thing. And this is a good time for Peter to start talking about the technical aspects. So Peter, if you want to jump in, and then you can share your screen if you have stuff to show also.
Sure. Thanks, Jethro. Jethro, what amount of time do we have here for me to talk?
You can take about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Guys, I'm really super excited about you being here. And, with Jethro and Casey, you are actually the first that I can see definitely in the United States, if not the world, that's working on use of chatbots in education. I'm a big believer in them, not as a way, like Jethro said, to take over your job, but to amplify what you do. The chatbots, what we're doing, my background is both in development and neuroscience brain research. So we've done some extensive work in how does the brain operate? How does it process images and video and things like that? And where we're at, we're going to do a minimum viable product. Like Jethro said, it's going to be on a website, not on Facebook Messenger. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to worry about that for students. It really will get them, and it's all controlled with the guided conversation. It's really controlled by what the teacher wants in there, which is Casey, and he's going to be providing some information to us about building that. But it will stay within a website, and then the links are being provided by Casey and Jethro. So they'll only go to website pages that were approved by both Jethro and Casey. So it's a controlled environment for the student. I will tell you though, going forward into the future, this is actually not the future, it's the present. We already have artificial intelligence so that if a student asks a particular question through machine learning, the bot can learn and can answer back. We do that with a lot of our clients right now. We also are working on voice so that students will be able to talk to a chatbot with an animated character, and the chatbot will be able to talk back. And I have a staff of 3 data scientists where we can actually measure the voice response, and we can determine a couple of things, not only the mood of the student based on their voice frequency and amplitude, but we can also do things like we'll be able to track the analytics to see how students interact with video versus text to determine whether they're more of a visual learner versus a text-based versus an audible learner. And we can provide a learning scenario based on how they learn, which again amplifies what you're doing in your classroom already. So I'm going to share with you just a little, Jethro asked me to share this, so I'll go through. Can you guys all see the process flow chart here?
Yep.
Okay, so what we did, and I'll tell you a quick story, guys, on this, how this all came to be and why we're using an animated talking raven and animated characters in our bots. Way back in May of 2016, after Mark Zuckerberg got up and said, we're opening up the application programmers interface for chatbots and Facebook Messenger, I started playing around with a little emojicon because we didn't have animation back then. But I gave him a personality, and I called him Chase the Chatbot. And he had an interesting personality, and he interacted with people in what he said in text. And what was interesting is people started writing me, because I have a health and wellness center in my business holdings. And they started writing me and they started saying, that Chase guy was kind of funny. He cracked me up. And I went, this is kind of interesting. They never said that bot. Now, fast forward a few months later, for some of you guys that are podcast listeners, we were on John Lee Dumas's show on Entrepreneur on Fire. He has about 1.6 million downloads a month. We were giving away a free chatbot. And so with my business partners, I said, you know what? I want to do something really different, because I told them about the Chase story. And so we decided to use, do you guys remember Wilson, the volleyball from Castaway?
Yeah.
So we decided to use Wilson because Tom Hanks had this whole relationship with this inanimate object. And what we were trying to test is we wanted to have something that it couldn't be a human. We didn't want it to be a bot. We wanted it to be this third thing. So Wilson was the MC of the show. We did, if you guys have ever seen that TV show Survivor on TV, we created a whole Survivor-like challenge. It was this whole gamified game show experience. It was like 3 to 5 minutes. Well, in my world of neuroscience brain research, we've done testing. I'm a neuroscientist out of London, England, but Microsoft and other companies have done tests. And what they found out, the average attention span of a human being now is about 8 seconds, and a goldfish is 9. So your students actually have less attention span than that little fish swimming around in a bowl. So, but if it's engaging and captivating, we can hold their attention span longer. So we created this whole game show experience. What happened is it was a beach challenge, a hiking challenge, a fishing challenge. They were 3 to 5 minute experiences, and we had nearly 94% of the hundreds of people that came into this bot finish the entire challenge, which was good in and of itself. But here's the thing, guys, that really caught my attention. We had, and I didn't ask them to write us, we had over 110 people wrote us, and they said, that Wilson guy was hilarious. He cracked us up. Do you have like a Wilson 2 coming out? He was super funny. They never said that bot. They always said that Wilson guy or he, as if he was real. Now, going back to my research in neuroscience, Princeton University back in 2010, they had done a research study and put these electroencephalograph caps that measures the electrical synaptic impulses in the brain or your brainwave patterns. And they had one person telling a story and one person listening to a story. And what they found out was that those two people had identical brainwave patterns. Now that's significant when you think about it, because think about when you watch a tearjerker movie, you tear up. Or when you watch a funny movie, you laugh, because in your brain, you're identifying with the character as if you are the character. And this is what's happening with these chatbots. So hence, with the Raven, the students identify with it, even though they know logically it's not real, they identify with it as it is, as if it's real in their brain and their limbic system. So it creates for deeper learning and engaging environments. So this is the development process that Jethro wanted me to show you. This is what we go through, and we'll be going through this, the same thing with Jethro and Casey to really determine. We've done the discovery calls and the scope of work to get through the paperwork process. So we're kind of in this area now. We wouldn't do so much of a brand audit because we have the Raven. We know what the brand persona is. It is a representation of transformation, right, in Native Alaskan culture. So we want to make sure that we're respecting that, and we're respectful of the Native Alaskan cultures that are here. And Casey's going to talk you through how we're going to be doing that for them to learn about the 5 different cultures that he has. But we do go through a whole character design process. We use Hollywood animators, Hollywood script writers, professional voice actors, and we'll be having some of that in this project so that it's very professional. Then we go through a bot conversation mapping, which Casey's helping us with what the conversation should be for the students and how they want to learn. We go through the bot development coding, any kind of data integrations. We can actually track, we can see every single conversation from every single person or student that's coming through. Casey and Jethro will be able to see that. And you know, for us in the business world, that's great for market research. For you as a teacher, that's great because you're seeing where the student stumbles or where they get tripped up or where they don't quite understand. And by looking at the back-end analytics, it helps to figure out how are we going to engage the student better, how are we going to provide deeper, richer learning. And then we go through some bot testing and a launch. But I'm telling you that I can't stress this enough. You know, I come from the days before there was computers. We had VT100 terminals with green screens and Unix code. We went from that to a PC. That was the platform. Then we went from PC to internet. That was the next platform. Then to smartphones. The new platform, and it's already here, guys, is messaging. They have reported already that more people are spending time on the top 4 messaging apps in the world than they're spending time on the top 4 social media sites, including Facebook. So messaging is the new platform. It's not going away. It's going to become bigger and bigger, and conversation is the new digital economy. So by you guys being forward thinking and tapping into this, this is going to be able to bring a lot of really interesting and cool learning experiences to the students that are with video, with image galleries, with text, with artificial intelligence. And again, it can help the student in addition to what you're teaching them. So it's not replacing you, it's amplifying what you're doing and providing them with learning experiences. You know, even in a situation, Case explained to me, sometimes he's teaching and there's 5 or 6 students that are waiting for him to come over and help, right? Well, a chatbot can provide some support and help until he can get to the student, work with them one-on-one. So I hope that helps you guys to get a general understanding of where this is all going and what's happening. There's some very good technologies. If you guys want to look up the word blockchain, that's another big technology that's coming that's going to provide a lot of security where data won't be breached, privacy standards will be upheld, and that's very important in a teacher-student type situation. So Jethro, I hope if there's any questions I can answer them, but that's really kind of my 10-minute review on what we're doing here.
Yeah, so leave your screen up for just a minute here, and I want him to show this to you because this, like any good teaching, is a process, right? And it's not like we can say, ooh, chatbots, let's like jump on and make it happen in the next 20 minutes. You know, we want to take a thoughtful, methodical, rational approach to doing this so that everything that we're creating actually has real meaning and is beneficial. So this process is really taking time to go through and make sure that everything is there. And you can see the length of it. You know, this stuff over here with the MOU creation and all that kind of stuff, like we're working with school districts. So it takes a long time. And we originally wanted to be able to show what this looked like at this time, but it just takes so long to do things that, you know, thankfully Peter's being patient and waiting for us to get moving. But you know, you gotta take the time to make it work and make it work well. And if you don't, then it's not going to turn out to be a good product. So the other thing that Peter did mention, that we are going to have an animated Raven guiding the kids through this, which is a different experience than what you experienced with Zambia, and that also, as he said, adds to the relationship to the content in a more powerful way, especially for children. All right, so with any questions for Peter about the implementation, the ideas behind it?
So the Raven bot one that's not going to be on Facebook Messenger, so that's something else, right?
That's right. That's going to be on a website because we had the exact same concerns as you, that we're not going to have kids that are on Facebook. We're not going to want to put kids on Facebook, and we're going to want it to be in a more controlled environment. Yes, sir.
Can the Raven build an interpersonal relationship, you know, back and forth with individuals, or is it just going to talk to a group? Like, really gets to build a rapport with the child.
Yeah, Peter, I don't know if you could hear the question. Does the chatbot build a rapport with the people who are using it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So initially with the minimum viable product version 1.0, it will be more of the Raven will be talking to the student, and then the student will be following what the Raven's instructions are. As we go forward, though, version 2.0 with artificial intelligence and learning and voice, sometime this year, we will have that technology where the Raven will talk to the student can type in, because I know by talking in a classroom that could be disruptive. So the student can type in, and then the Raven will based on artificial intelligence, will be able to respond back and answer those questions. So yes, there is going to be at some point in time full interaction between the Raven and the student. Now, we can control those conversations. It's called a natural language understanding engine. So we can put in responses that we want that are appropriate so that the student's not asking an inappropriate question and getting an inappropriate response. So we can control how the conversations happen in a learning environment.
And that will happen.
But you're saying
Yeah.
Yeah.
speak to one another with a microphone or whatever.
Yep. And that's something that Peter was just telling me before we started, that he's working on a way to have it be a voice interactive chatbot instead of just through typing. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
For those taking notes, blockchain's one word and spelled that by sound.
Thank you.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Another question?
Is it going to be free?
Is it going to be free?
Yeah.
Great question.
That's my question. That was my
I just
question.
want to know, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Charge me.
Yeah. So for this, what we're designing this to be is to be something that everybody can use to see what it looks like, that any school district could adopt and see what it looks like, just to experience it from the student perspective. Obviously, it costs us money to develop it with Peter and his company. And so what I'm actively looking for is a way to enable that to happen so that we can continue this kind of development and make it so that it can still be something that we can access. So I don't know.
Jethro, can I comment on that for a sec?
Yeah, please.
So one of the things where we're going in addition to voice activation is this is something else you could look up, because I know some of these, I mean, I live these terms, but I know you're in a different realm. By the way, guys, my mom was a biology teacher, a science teacher her whole life. So I really understand, what she went through and some of the things that we're trying to do to really help in education. But there's another thing you can look up. It's called web views, and web views give you the ability to bring a website like into a phone app. But we can also do this in a chatbot. Now, why that speaks to what you're asking is through a web view, we can actually give the ability for you to set up your own curriculum, your own quizzes, your own testing. You'll put it in a chat environment, and then you'll have a login and password. Each of your students will have a login and password, so just not anybody can get in there. And so you'll have a controlled environment. So whether you're a science teacher, a math teacher, an English teacher, you'll be able to set up your own curriculum inside the chatbot with your own quizzes and your own emphasis on learning if they happen to not do well in a particular area on the quiz.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely is a lot of potential there. And the things that we're talking about doing, as I said at the beginning, these are very early stages for us right now. And so we definitely want to continue this and help it to grow and do some really cool things for our kids. But as Peter mentioned multiple times, we really need to make sure that we have control and that we know where the kids are and what they're doing, and that they're not, using this to get off into some other place. And so keeping those ideas in mind, we're making sure that we're providing a good experience, but also making sure our kids are staying safe and being aware of that.
I keep seeing it managed at the district level, just since that's the easiest way to go.
Managed at the district level?
Grades to go into your grade book, the tests would be very nice.
Yeah, that would be very cool to have your grades go straight into the grade book. All right, any other technical questions for Peter? Do you need a couple minutes to just talk at your tables about what you've learned so far?
When
No? Go ahead.
When are we expecting the Raven to be ready? With the launch date?
Well, I'm hoping February 2018. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah.
It's a short month.
Yeah, no, we realistically are hoping that by the fall, we can have something that'll be up and running as a minimum viable product, not any of the fancy stuff, but at a basic level, something that people can see what the experience is like.
And the answer on that one, Jethro, is yes, we will have it ready by the fall, for sure.
All right. Okay, so Thank you, Peter, for that. We're going to turn the time over to Casey to talk about what our actual bot is going to look like. And as you already saw, I thought there were 3. There's actually 5. I knew that, but Casey's been doing a lot of the background work on it, so we'll let him talk about that. So go ahead, Casey.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So when this project was brought to me by Jethro, he was telling me about how to make a chatbot and like maybe we could use it for education. And so I went through the standard teacher things of like, well, I could probably use it for reading quizzes or I could do this. And then I stopped and I realized that, you know, with such an interactive technology, one of the greatest assets to an educator is that dead time. And as most of you know, the most dangerous time in any classroom is when your kids have idle hands. If they're waiting for you to edit a paper, if they're, you know, stuck on a question, if they're somewhere else, that's when all the mischief and the management usually comes in. And so I was starting to think about, well, okay, since we're the first to do this, what can we market from Alaska that would be really interesting for everywhere else? Because I'm a big proponent of open source software. And I figured that if I was going to put my time into developing a lesson, I wanted something that I could hand out on a QR code, which is about this big, and present something that's unique to us. And so that's where I started realizing that native mythos, native cultures, and a lot of these things that are mandated across our districts to be taught would be a really, really good place for a chatbot to streamline them. And so currently in our minimal viable product, I just focused on just 5 of the major tribes. There's actually many, many more. And so the way this bot I envision working is hosting it off a website. So the website works as a HUD, which is a heads-up display. And so this heads-up display would show a map of Alaska and the different quadrants of where most of these tribes are located. So those would include the Inupiaq in the north, the Yupik in the northeast, the Athabaskan, the Tlingit, and the Aleut. And so for the very first rendition of this, I thought, well, how would I want to break kids up? How would I want to get them into different areas and not necessarily on the same path and have a little bit of personalized learning in the process? And I thought that a really good way to do this would be kind of one of those simple, personality style quizzes. Everybody has seen these on like, what Disney princess are you or whatever. And usually they're not based on fact. But this one I took and iterated into 10 different questions that relate to each of these tribes. So some of them have to do with, if you were out here, where would you rather live? What animal do you like? And all of them are grounded in a lot of research, like what style of food would you eat if you could only do that? And so the kids in the first interaction with the Raven bot will take a quiz. And they'll play through it, and it'll pair them out into specific regions in Alaska. So say Timmy goes through it, he gets his things, the bot assigns him, oh, hey, look, based on your responses, some of the stuff that you would indicate would be Tlingit. And so he would start there. And the idea is that, using Kagan and some other strategies to pair kids together so they can work at different levels, the bot does a lot of that management that I would have to do normally by looking either at test scores or knowing what the kid wants to do. And that helps start them. And so that's where we started building. One of the other things that I saw that was really, really useful for this, at least coming from the English side, because I'm an English teacher, is that if you could build a bot to handle some of the different types of writing that you wanted to do. So like say your kids are writing a 5-paragraph essay, or they're writing an analysis, or they're writing a compare and contrast. Like the biggest amount of time that you spend as an educator, at least in the English department for this, is that you get a backlog. You have your kids that come up to you and like, hey, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do here, or can you edit this? Or is this how you cite a source? And if you could streamline a lot of the things that you have as idle conversations that take you anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes with a kid, that you could say, hey, check the bot. I'm pretty sure that there's a section in there. Why don't you look through that? So at least keeps them engaged and engrossed in what they're doing. And so you don't have that backlog where they look at you and go, oh, you've got 10 kids in front of me, so I'm going to sit here and cause mischief.
So that's a very basic overview, but that gives you a general idea of where this is heading and what it could look like. Any questions for Casey about the project or anything like that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, is he saying that, I don't want that long line in class. So we use a lot of Google Classroom and suggesting later, right? Mm-hmm. Edits, but could his product come up with a better editing process than what Google has or Chrome Classroom or whatever?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, Casey, could this come up with a better editing product than something that is already in Google Classroom?
Absolutely. And so one of the things that is really, really hard with young people to get them to edit is that the amount of attention you have to spend when you're looking through different things and you're looking, to say, okay, is this a run-on? Is this that? The amount of cognitive input that a child has to give to edit their own paper successfully is a lot more than most of them are willing to invest. So with a chatbot, not only can you provide some of the standard basic questions, like you don't have to answer the editing. And this is why I think that it would be stronger than Google, because we've all seen this problem with our students. They'll type something up and then they get the red line and they switch the letter. They don't even look at it. They go through it and it's good. And that's not learning. That's not engagement. That is having a machine do it for you. And so having a chatbot, for example, if I was going to do an analysis paper that I required the kids to do, 3 sources and use X amount of quotes. Okay. So I'll take this from the high school side of things. If I had a chatbot that could animate that for me, so the kids go through, they write their report, they can ask the bot, hey, can you check over this? The bot can scan through it. And they'd say, hey, you know what? Instead of underlining things, which is very impersonal, it could ask them questions, which is where you get the engagement with the kids. Hey, did you really check the source on X? Did you, I see that you're missing some, formatting in this space. I'd also notice that you don't have a bibliography. And so as far as engaging the learning and keeping the kids thinking about the technical details, which is where a lot of our young writers will just kind of be like, it's good enough. That is a stronger platform for editing than a Google underline, which is completely impersonal.
So just to add to that answer, our school has started using mathspace.co for math. And so teachers are using that, and I'm going into classrooms and seeing what's going on. And there are 2 students that keep saying, Mr. Jones, will you come to our math class again because you're a really good teacher? And I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm a former English teacher, not a math teacher. And I'm not actually a good math teacher because I don't ever explain anything to them, because that's not what I think I should be doing. So in your question of, can this actually ask good questions? If we program it to, then it certainly can. And all I do with those students in that math class is I ask questions like, what do you need to do next? Why did you do that? When you got that answer, did that answer look like what you thought it would look like? And if it didn't, then you say, why didn't it work? If it did, why did it work? And so that's all I do with those 2 kids is I just ask them questions. And so being able to ask questions forces them to come up with the answers themselves instead of relying on me or the teacher to be the one to give the answers. And that's really a basic underlying idea, that asking questions, the answer doesn't matter, right? The question is what matters. If you ask the question, they can figure out the right answer on their own. And that's an area where a chatbot could provide some very good opportunities to cause them to reflect.
Yeah, it's on a very individual level.
Yeah, very individual level.
And then what about, especially for older kids, teachers, like detecting plagiarism or something like that?
So detecting plagiarism, you can add something to this, Casey, but I would if it's about plagiarism, the thing I always tell my teachers is, if you're focusing on that, then you're missing an opportunity. Really, it's not plagiarism as soon as the kid cites a source. So as long as they do, right? Yeah. So if it's plagiarism, then they're missing a source. So put the source in, and then it's not plagiarism anymore. It's just a poorly written paper. That's a different issue that we need to deal with, but it's not plagiarism if you put a source in. So if you didn't say that of your own, like out of your own mind, then you need to put a source. If you got that from somewhere else, then you need to put a source. That's really what we need to be teaching, rather than this is plagiarism and you're done. So do you have anything to add about that, Casey?
Yeah, I do. With these bot programs, like the biggest challenge for me looking at this technology, and like, I'm the younger generation, I stood right between having Dewey Decimal System and having smartphones. And so I look back at this, and one of the biggest challenges for me to utilize this tech was that the questions had to be bigger. in the sense of if we're looking for plagiarism, if we're trying to teach grammar, if we're trying to do a lot of these smaller skills that you can either do with an interaction, then you're really missing a lot of what is capable with this technology. And so tying into what Jethro was saying about the fact that, if we're looking at plagiarism, generally speaking, it's pretty obvious when that happens, but programming a bot to detect that, you could do it, but it would be better to have that bot engage with the kid and ask them questions and keep them on task. And so like one of the things that's really nice about this tech is that it can't fill my role as an educator, but it can keep the kids from stagnating and sitting in a place where they, end up either going, okay, this is good enough, or, everybody's had that kid that's like, I did it. And you're like, yeah, you did, but it's not really that great. And so it can help manage a lot of these situations for you and keep them moving down the path to better and stronger writing or math or understanding of science or whatever you program it to do. And the final really cool thing about this is that as an educator, if you embrace this technology, you can make it completely yours. So you can take that and have it be a reflection of what your telos as an educator is, what your own personal desires and goals that you want to get. So it just takes a little bit thinking bigger than that, than less than let's go to grammar.
Yeah, Jeff.
And I'm kind of excited about this because as a math teacher, so many times you go to things and it's always for English, science, and so forth. But math it's a procedure, it's technical.
Yeah.
Which is what so much of these chatbots are. You go to a site, you have a technical question, you need a procedure to follow. However, what I want to know is this something that if I invest 20, 30 hours of some training and so forth that I can do, or do I need to go find my own tech-savvy neurologist from California to do this?
Yes, you need to go find your own tech-savvy neurologist. So that's part of what the way that I originally got connected with Peter is he does a chatbot called Pete the Podcaster. And I have a podcast called Transformative Principal, and he and I started talking about that. Once I saw what it could do with my podcast fans, then I immediately saw the application for education. And so that's where what I was able to do with Pete the Podcaster is that was something where I could just sign up for it, and he could put my information in, and then it would have a conversation with people who are fans of my podcast, which is great. But if you take that to the education standpoint, what I envision in the future, and I haven't talked to either one of these guys about it, but I'm sure that this is what they're seeing also, is that we establish a protocol for the Raven chatbot, and then we do something similar where it teaches a myriad of other things, right? So the Pythagorean theorem, that is a process that kids need reminders on and practice on, and that's it. And that's what you could do with it. And so if it's a math bot, it could be whatever a symbol for math is, a pie with eyes and a mouth, and it could talk, and it could walk kids through a whole bunch of different processes so that it could teach them anything. So if they put in, here's what I think would be cool. I'm going off the cuff here, so jump in, Peter, if you need to. What I think would be cool is they put in a math problem, and then it walks them through how to solve it without giving them the answer. Dude, did you just hear that, Peter?
I did. Great idea. But by the way, I don't know who's the math person. Because I have an engineering degree, I had to get a math minor in college with 6 quarters of calculus. So I know how dry it can be. So the whole idea with this is, and that's part of what we do in technology. I've developed with not by myself, but with different teams, over 400 products in bioscience, biomed, Nike. We developed the first VR glasses in the world when I ran that division. And guys, here's the thing. Anything that we do, and this is true for commercial products that you interact with as it is for your students, it has to be engaging. It has to be humanized and connected, because if it's not good technology. That's my opinion. I mean, how many of you guys raise your hand if you have an iPhone? Okay, most all of you do. I have an Android and iPhone. The reason why is because that is I see the guy back there. But the thing is that if you remember back in 2007, Steve Jobs was up on the stage and he pulled that out of a manila envelope and he said, this is the new category design in smartphones. And that was because it was something that the masses could use, that was easy, that was engaging, that was entertaining. You're not going to have a technical degree to implement these chatbots going forward in the future, because all of the work is done behind the scenes without you having to know about how it operates. It will operate for you, and it will create that amplified lesson for you. But it will be entertaining and it will be fun for the kids while they're learning. And I think based on the, what Jethro and Casey are talking about, I mean, imagine asking questions and really fostering critical thinking. To me, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have one last thing to add.
Go ahead.
And so with our math teacher in the background there, as far as procedural, here's one of the things that I see that is really useful for this technology. So if you host your bot, so let's say I'm giving them some pointers on how to do technical writing. I've gone through InDesign. Here's your questions to provoke better writing, to get better sources, to get better citing, et cetera, and so forth. Or you decide that, okay, I'm going to list these equations. Here's some steps. Here's some questions to engage them. After they leave your classroom, that QR code goes with them. So not only have you fostered the ability for them to engage in this material critically, you've given them a personal digital assistant that is completely accessible to them. If they leave my 8th grade class and they get to their senior paper and they're like, man, I really want something to do this, boom, there's the questions right there. So not only does it engage this critical thinking, but the carryover and the fact that these kids now have this resource to their very own is exponential, because they can't always get a hold of me, but they can at least get a start on a QR code.
Yeah.
There you go. It'd be awesome if you could reach out with like Sal Khan with Khan Academy, and he's already got all those practice activities. If there's the little pie guy down there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just walking through, and because they already have like steps, like get a hint, and it walks you through. But how cool would it be if it, the kids could ask a question to the bot, and he could help walk you through that, and it's already connected in that system with Khan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Christina?
So, Peter, I'm stuck a little bit at the humanizing piece. So if you create this and you're saying it needs to have a humanizing piece, I want to understand what you mean by humanizing, because right now I'm not being sold on a chatbot being humanizing. So sell me on that. How can that be humanizing?
Sure. What we're doing with our animation and things like that is we are actually giving the animation. In fact, I can send this over to Jethro as an example. We work with a lot of authors, and they are their own personal brand. So we're actually making a chatbot of them. So they are their own animated character, and we provide humanized expression, emotion. I don't know if you guys know about neurolinguistic programming, but involuntary eye movement and things like that, which you would normally see in an animated movie. We do the same thing in chatbots. So if you're looking at when someone talks about a particular thing related to emotion, their eyes go down in the animated character because it's a kinesthetic thing. So we are representing, we're not replicating, but we're representing the human emotion inside the chatbot. So when they're sad or they're frustrated, the chatbot can show that emotion in the animation.
Mm-hmm. And so that you didn't see in the Zambia example, because I wanted to show you what a chatbot did first, but I'll share another example with you later that shows what the animation adds to it, because it does add something. And I was skeptical also when I first did it. And I was like, that cheesy thing is not going to be engaging at all.
Well, here's another
but
piece
it
I
is.
feel like could be sort of, and maybe you have this plan for being built in as, if once you humanize something, a human will want to build a relationship with that thing. So then the next question is, what programming is being designed to allow for the continuation of that relationship? In other words, if, a month later, I've forgotten how to do that math problem, will that chatbot prompt back, hey, did you remember that we did this a month ago? Remember how frustrated you were? I mean, to me, there's some, and perhaps that's where the artificial intelligence piece will come in, I don't know. But then, of course, my brain starts to panic a lot because then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting a little too close to like robots taking over, right? My brain's freaking out.
And
so
they're
then my
going
next one
to.
is, can you please prompt with, hey, I'm a chatbot? And I know
Mhm.
that's like a personal issue, but it somehow makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, and that does make sense, and that is totally legitimate, and you're not alone in thinking that. So,
Yeah.
By the way, just to add to that, we do let them know it's a bot. We don't try to fool anybody. And people do know that they're talking to a bot, but we also let them know. But I will tell you guys, the future of this and where this is headed is each particular person is going to have their own virtual assistant concierge bot that's going to know a lot about you, and it's going to be able to provide services for you in the future. Same thing with a student. It will go with them all the way through from K to postgraduate if they do it.
yeah.
And it'll store all that stuff.
Yeah. So just in closing, want to say real quick, if you're interested in the development of this and you want to be notified when it is done and released, or if you want to participate, go to bit.ly/TP impact, and you can take my little survey about impacting. My goal is to impact 100 million kids by the year 2027 through things like this and other things that I do. So if you would like to go there, you can do that. You can also connect with Peter directly at chatbotnation.co. And if you want to hook up with Casey, just put that in there as well. And I'll be sure to send him your email address and everything also so that you can.
I missed at the beginning, where do you guys work out of?
I'm a principal in Fairbanks, and Casey's a teacher in my school. And then Peter's does this Chatbot Nation in Southern California. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the podcast name in your
Transformative Principal.
principal. Okay.
Yep.
Al,
Yep, pal.
okay.
Because the principal is your pal. It's true.
No, it's not true. That never is not true. It's never not true.